Okay, here's your beginning notes for lesson two. Lesson two is about variable types. So for the freshmen, when we did variable types, we just used the word VAR, and we could assign a variable name and assign it to anything we wanted to. But Java's more fussy in terms of how to create variables. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create 4 different kinds of variables: strings, and then 3 different things called primitive types: ints, doubles, and booleans. So I'm going to go through these notes. You should be listening and following along. Take these same notes yourself. If I'm going too fast, just stop the video. You can always re-listen. So I'm just going to go through them one at a time, give you some examples, and then in class tomorrow, we'll do some demo and then finish the rest of the lesson notes. So the first variable type is a string. It stores anything between quotes, and you should be familiar with that when you took JavaScript, freshmen. Now I'm going to say the strings are objects. This will make more sense later on. Freshmen understand what an object is a little bit. So here's some examples how to create a string. So we say the word string with a capital S, a space, and then the name of my string is S1. We set it equal to something between double quotes, in this case, Lala, and I end with a semicolon. This one line demonstrates how you declare a variable S1 and initialize the variable to a string value Lala. Here's another way to do the same thing. This is an alternate way of creating a string object for Lala. We're not going to use this a lot right now. I just wanted you to see it. Most of the time, we're going to do it this way. But here's another way. We say string S2 equals a new string, and inside of parentheses, we put Lala. Now, over here on the right is a piece of memory. When I do a command like S1 equals Lala, what it does is it goes to memory, it reserves a spot big enough to store a string, assigns S1 to point to that memory location, and populates that memory location with the string Lala. So I can see S1, this is what it looks like in memory. Notice that S2 is a different string object. So it's a different memory location. S1 and S2, even though they're the same string, they're actually different strings. Now, here's an example of another string S3 equals Dipsy. This is what it would look like. Here's a memory location labeled S3. Inside that memory location is the string Dipsy. Now notice all 3 of these, we've done all of that in declaring and initializing in one line. These last 2 lines demonstrate how, if you wanted to, you could separate into 2 steps. The first line shows how I can declare a variable S4, and then in the next line I say S4 equals Tinky Winky. So basically in the first step, Java goes to memory, assigns S4 to a location that can store a string, and then this line actually populates that location with Tinky Winky. Now I'm going to move on, and now we're going to talk about the 3 primitive data types that you are responsible for. You are responsible for ints, doubles, and booleans. And for right now, all you really need to know is that primitive data types are not objects. But from above, we recall that strings are objects. So let's go down. So the first one we're going to come across is int. This is used to store integers. And here's some examples how to create ints. It's very similar to what we've been doing. Int age equals 59, semicolon at the end. So this goes to memory and has a variable age pointing to a location, and in there we're storing 59. Here's another example, int x equals 5,000. Same process. Java goes to memory, assigns x to point to a memory location, and now I notice that my memory looks a little different, but just go with me for right now, and it populates it with 5,000. So again, declaring and initializing on one line. Here's an example where we separate the declaring We're declaring int y on one line and initializing y to 1776 on another line. And here we show that representation. Now, notice what the next line is saying. And oops, I forgot a semicolon right here, so please add that in. I've already declared x to be 5,000 up here, but down here I'm saying, oh man, I need to change what the value of x is. So if I say x equals minus 333 semicolon, what Java will do is go to memory, find the location that x is pointing to, and replace 5,000 with minus 333. This is called overriding a variable. Also notice that once I declare x as an integer, if I want to change it later, I didn't have to put int x again. I just said x. If I tried to put int x, I would get a compiling error. Moving on to doubles. Doubles are used to store decimals. Don't ask me why they didn't just call it decimal. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But double means decimals. So for your information, it requires a lot more memory to store a double versus an integer. So you'll see when I show you examples of doubles how I've actually used a larger memory space to indicate that more memory is required to store a double. So here are a few examples again, declaring and initializing on one line, x1, Java goes to memory, finds a location to store a double, labels it x1, and then populates it with the value 1.6. Does the same for y2. And then the third example is showing you how you can declare a double variable in one step. So Java goes to memory, finds a location to store a double, Q points to it, and then in the following step, it looks like again I made a mistake. I forgot the semicolon. But in the second step, it initializes Q to the value minus 0.0123. Again, visually note how these are integers, these are doubles. Doubles require more memory, thus the larger visual representation than it is to store an integer. And finally, we have the third primitive type is a Boolean. Booleans can only store true or false. True and false are reserved words. They're purple when you type them in JGrasp. So here are a couple examples. The first line is showing you declaring a Boolean variable ans1, setting it equal to true, like we see here in memory. And here's an example of declaring a Boolean variable ans2, and then in the second line, populating it with a false. If I try to populate it with a number or a string, I'll get a compiling error. So please finish reading the rest of the lesson tomorrow when I come to school. We're going to demo how to set up these variables in one step and two step. And then I'm going to continue on with the rest of the lesson. I'll make a video in class. We'll do a little bit more in JGrasp, and then you'll get started on your next programming projects. All right, don't forget, I'm checking in lesson 1 vocab, lesson 2 vocab, and notes on lesson 2 when I come to class tomorrow. I do not accept late homework. Thanks.